The first month or so that I was back from treatment, there were a couple instances. I was on the phone with my sister once that she just said something that like rubbed me the wrong way, pissed me off. She wasn't even being mean or anything. It was just whatever it was, it pissed me off. But what my first thought was, I'm going to go get fucked up right now and I'm going to show her. Mm-hmm. And I immediately, after I had that thought, I caught myself. Right. I'm like, that's not going to do anything to her. It's going to screw you up.
Don't Hide the Scars, a weekly podcast focused on addiction and recovery. Created by the nonprofit PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, and founded by Flindt Andersen.
Boy, where do I want to start? I know so much about your story, so it's hard for me to pick a point to start.
Story or like whatever you
we'll dive through all kinds of stuff. You'll be shocked and awed with the questions that Flindt and myself will come up with, especially Flindt, or not.
I told Jason I've been listening to his show and this show since I got out of rehab. As soon as they came around and I found him, and then I was like, oh shit, that's Corey Andersen's dad. And then my cousin Lisa was on, and I was like, yeah. So Monday mornings. The first two podcasts I listened to for the week.
Thank you.
Well, look at that, huh? Yeah. Flindt Andersen, we're famous, at least in Joey.
I'm a legend in my own mind.
Well, this is true. But no, it's we just did a podcast. We were talking about the new benzo dope hitting.
Yeah, and I listened to that.
Yeah, and I don't remember if you had ever talked about any benzos. And this mainly oxys and...
No, I had a prescription for Xanax. And so when I hear Flindt talk about, and my cousin talk about kids, they think they're buying Xanax and then they're, getting fentanyl poisoning and all this. I have a really big problem with Xanax and things like that. I don't think that there's any reason for anybody to be taking them, period. Anxiety is a real thing, but that you can fix on your own. And so when you hear saying, the kid just thought he was buying Xanax and now he's dead because it was laced. Why is the kid buying Xanax?
Right.
Most of the time it's because mom or dad are at home. Because my dad has taken Xanax for 50 years or however long, but they're at home. I'm having a panic attack, and they take a Xanax and that calms them down. So that's what their kids see and that's what they think. And
right. Yeah.
So I was taking Xanax. I got it from my doctor right around the time I really started enjoying pills, and then that combination, the Xanax and Norco and drinking, I just felt fantastic. And then I don't remember what happened. I didn't know about the withdrawals from that at the time, and then I was just subconsciously I think I'm taking too many drugs. Maybe I'll just cut out the Xanax. I don't really think I need it and whatever. And then all of a sudden, I thought I was having a heart attack one day.
Right.
I was living with a buddy of mine and one of Corey's good friends. This is a long time ago. And he left for work, and I'm sitting there like, what do I do? I took a couple Norcos thinking that would help and took a swig of vodka.
Right.
And I called my mom. I'm like, I think you need to come pick me up, take me to the hospital. I think I'm having a heart attack or something. And she showed up, and then my parents had been divorced forever at the time. He showed up right behind her. But by the time they got there, I kind of calmed down and whatever. And then I realized, so I didn't go to the hospital. I was okay. And then I realized, man, it was the Xanax.
Yeah.
It was the withdrawal from that. And
let me ask you if you recall when your doctor prescribed it, what kind of a conversation was there? Was there any, this can be addictive, there is?
I don't recall. I don't think so. I told him, I'm like, I get jittery and I feel like I'm having a panic attack. And my dad's, giving me a half of one of his before and it's helped. And I don't need it all the time, but I just think that I just need something to help. This is back in 2007 or 8, so in my late 20s. But yeah, definitely didn't say you could get addicted or anything. No conversation like that. But
they never had those conversations.
No.
Because
I've only ever had antidepressants prescribed, and I do remember the most recent time my doctor did have the conversation, but this was post all that stuff. So this was. Or during it, 2016, 2017, the last time. So I was just curious about that with the, you and I had that conversation, what is the warning label on this? How clear are they making that this is addictive? You can become addicted, let alone there is a withdrawal process. I'm sure that never happens.
They never talked about it with Xanax, Valium, any type of benzo.
Every time I would go in and get a script for a benzo, they never mentioned it. I remember maybe occasionally on the Norco and the Vicodin.
Yeah, I never got any of that.
But seriously, it was virtually nothing. Not talked about addiction whatsoever. It was just, let's just write them.
Yeah, and actually, I had a procedure last Friday. It was a procedure that I was going to do last year, and I put it off for whatever reason. But when I was with that doctor last year, I told him, because like I scheduled the procedure, and so he's like, yeah, then we're going to prescribe this, that. I said, just so you know, I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, so no narcotics for me. And he's like, okay, we'll go back a year later to actually get the procedure done. Same conversation's happening, and he's like writing stuff down, and he's like, yeah, we're going to call in some Valium and some Tylenol with codeine, so you'll be nice and comfortable. And I was like, sorry, doc, you have a lot of patients, and I haven't seen you in a year. You probably forgot, but yeah, I'm recovering drug addict and alcoholic, so I don't need that stuff. Point is, like, I would think it would be good practice to actually maybe ask the patient first, are you comfortable with, are you okay with taking this kind of drug and that kind of drug, as opposed to just automatically giving it? Because how many addicts out there who are either in recovery or wanting to get in recovery, or like, when I was using, the doctor mentioned Valium, Xanax, or Norco or something, my ears would perk up.
Absolutely.
I'd be doing cartwheels out the door. Right. And so it's like, maybe preface it, are you okay with taking these kind of drugs? But I mean,
they don't do it.
No.
And they never will.
No, and you can't really fault them, but like...
Well, I don't know if you can, I don't think you can fault them. I think today doctors have so many patients and they're so busy that is just something that's over their heads. You would think there would be something in place for physicians and dentists, to talk about with this, especially with the epidemics that we've had. And by the way, this has been an epidemic since before 2000. But no, they still don't do it, and I don't get it. But it's interesting you mentioned that. I'm sitting here with my right shoe off because I've got to have a foot procedure done, and I'm going into my doctor in the next couple of days to decide when I'm going to do it. And I want to say this. I've been in recovery since 2001, and I've had several surgeries since then. A couple, open heart and the whole deal. And I think it depends on the surgery that you're having. Because if you're having an open heart surgery, I guarantee you're not going to get through it without any pain meds. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. Even this foot thing, right, is because there's so many bones in the foot, and they're going to have to break it in 4 different places anyway to get this thing fixed. But still, there's going to be an extremely small number that is prescribed. My wife gets them. There are no more. After that, there are simply no more. And if my family even thinks that I have figured out a way to get more, they will stand there with a drug test and make me pee in that cup. Because again, I'm not against the drug for certain medical procedures. There's certain ones you're just not going to get through without it. But you got to remember, those pain meds, what a narcotic does is it tells the brain to tell you that you're not supposed to hurt. It's the acetaminophen that's in the drug that is actually taking away the pain. The narcotic part of it is simply makes your brain goofy so you don't think about it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
The hydrocodone doesn't take the pain away. It just makes you loopy as shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. You're just high, so you don't care. That's why you see, in movies, when they're wheeling somebody down, they've already given them something, and they're just talking and they're saying shit. Has nothing to do with pain.
Yeah.
Okay. Has nothing to do with it. Yeah. So anyway, it's. I mean, and again, in some cases, sometimes you're going to need it.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I've been sober since October of 2019, so not even 4 years, but
Congratulations, by the way. That's huge.
Yeah. I fractured this elbow and tore the extensor tendon. Oof. And had some nerve damage and stuff, but made it through just fine with no pain medication. Had surgery on this shoulder, had surgery on my nose. I had something blocking my airway, so they shave off some bone up in there, but nothing. I had a procedure the other day, and I had to have that conversation though with all those doctors.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, just to let them know.
But
they were all willing and ready to prescribe me something, which. But I don't know, I just heard some horror stories. Not that I wanted to take anything, but I heard stories from people that have been in surgery and other things where they forgot to let them know, and then they were given these drugs, and that could have led to something else. I was just covering my own ass.
New Perceptions North, the premier drug and alcohol treatment and recovery center in Central California. A full continuum of medically supervised, top-quality care with programs for detox, inpatient residential treatment with dual diagnosis, intensive outpatient treatment, sober living, support groups, and more. With 50-plus years of combined experience and sobriety, Flindt Andersen and Thelma Gatlin Wilson provide adult men and women with the highest caliber of professional health care, treating each client with compassion and respect, and a safe, comfortable environment. To begin the process of recovery, to proudly create and sustain a life without addiction, call 559-978-1507 or visit newperceptionsnorth.com.
This is kind of weird because I remember when I had my hip replaced, 2014, I think it was. And I go in there, I told my doctor, I tell everybody. And again, when you're talking about bone surgeries, they're violent. That's the only way I can put it. They're in there with a hammer and a chisel, man.
Oh yeah, they're taking that socket.
They're just beating the shit out of you. All right, so I remember before I went in, I said, look, I'm in recovery. I'm a recovering opiate addict. I said I have an extremely low tolerance for pain. Right, you can't give me a 5 milligram Vicodin. It's not going to work. And what do? They get, they had me on fentanyl during the surgery, right? And fentanyl for a few hours after the surgery. And the next day they come in with a 5 milligram Vicodin. I might as well have taken nothing, okay? Because it does nothing, right, to me. And I am in massive amounts of pain sitting there. And it's like, I would rather, and I told him, I said, give me a 30 milligram Percocet, right? At least once. Then you can start bringing it back down again. Because when you're sitting there in that much pain, my first reaction, no matter how long I've been clean and sober, is I want something and I want it fucking now. Yeah. Okay. And I just, not that I am, all right, but what's going through your head is I'm going to get something. I'm going to get something because I can't live like this. It's really an awkward position that the medical establishment doesn't really understand. They really don't, and doctors in particular. And of course, if you sit there and go, yeah, I have a low tolerance for pain, I'm in recovery, I make you look, this is child's play compared to what I used to do, right? And then all of a sudden they start thinking, well, now he's drug seeking.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not drug seeking. Jesus, I just don't want to be in this much pain for the next 16 hours. Right. So anyway, But
you brought up a good point too about like maybe if you were early in recovery and kind of one of those tips to give to people, if you are going to be approached with one of these, take someone with you that's accountable, that holds you accountable.
Of course.
That'll be there. You know what I'm saying? Because we've seen it so many times of people falling off.
And then I have like same kind of area. Some other advice that I realized a few months ago when I had the surgery on my nose in December. I'm like, okay, I've had 1 or 2 surgeries already, and everything's been fine. I would advise asking what they're going to give you because I still haven't found out. But like the anesthesia, because like I was fine the first surgery before this one, I was fine whatever I had. I was dope sick for about 2 or 3 days after this surgery. Yeah. I didn't realize it at first. Like I woke up and I went home and I was like, I didn't work out this morning for the first time in a while, so maybe it's that. But now I was like having kind of like the chills and like just weird feelings in my body. And I'm like, man, I haven't felt like this in like 3 years. I'm like, I need to find out what they gave me just so if I need to have another procedure down the road, I don't want that.
That's a good point.
Yeah. But my mind never went to like, I need something to like make me feel better. But I would imagine that could happen to some people.
Well, it's interesting because with anesthesia, I love the guys. I had a couple buddies of mine that actually had a hip replacement as well. And so that first day and even the second day, they're going, guy, I don't even need any pain pills. I feel great. And I'm going, dude, okay, that's the anesthesia that's still in you. It takes about 72 hours for this stuff to come out of your system. Yeah. Nah, I got this, right? 2 days later, they're going, holy shit, I can't, it's killing me. I'm going, well, yeah, I told you, but no, you're right. That anesthesia, because again, it could be a variety of anything, but from Versed and fentanyl to morphine. I mean, and if they give you morphine and maybe you didn't know you might have been allergic to that to some degree, who knows? So it's always good to find out.
Yeah. No, I had a procedure, the colonoscopy, and I read it, and it was Flindt.
That's fentanyl.
Flindt was dealing with, it was fentanyl that they were putting me under with. I'm freaking out, calling my sponsors. Does this mean I'm going to relapse with this? Well, no. If you have some urge afterwards, give me a call. Flindt was there available too, and it was just like, it went fine for me. But I wasn't really a pill guy as is. But it still freaked me the hell out.
Man, when they're coming up the back end like that, they better give me everything they got. Okay,
Exactly,
that's all I got to say right there. Give me everything you got.
It's beyond the finger. This is a whole tube.
There's a whole.
So I don't want to be waking up.
No.
Well, and I think it's good we bring this up too. Not that you weren't struggling with alcohol at the time, but really your opioid addiction took off from a sports injury, and we've heard that so many times.
Yeah, and like I mentioned before, like after the fact, I realized, I was drinking too much already, and I'd probably been an alcoholic for a while, but the combination of the two for me was the opposite of most people. Like the more pills and alcohol I put together, the more awake I was and the more I could go and the more fun I was having, the better I would feel. Yeah.
That's rare.
I know.
I think that's rare.
I think it's very rare.
I basically quit drinking because I didn't want the drinking to affect my opiate high.
Yeah. For sure.
I never drank when I was taking opiates.
Yeah, no, I did. I mean, at first, I looked at it as the same way. Like, I might cut back on my drinking. And I would guess probably for the first couple years, I didn't drink as much. But the amount I was drinking was still a lot for a normal person.
Right.
Like, I'd still go Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, and probably Sunday afternoons and whatever. But the second, half of that decade was just all booze and all pills nonstop. And, it was crazy. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
We do that a lot here.
Busy thinking about it all.
Right? I mean, exactly. I mean, sometimes talking about this, I mean, it can bring back some very strange memories and affect us in different ways, man.
No, I was at my therapist right before I came here, and we were talking about this because I told her I was coming to see you guys. And she started asking me, how much do you remember for those 10 years? You said, you were using and drinking a lot. And I was like, I got a good idea of everything that was going on because I hid it so well from everybody. But point that started talking about it, I was like, I kind of remember parts of 2015. I said, 2016 I have a good memory of because that's where I ended up in the hospital in January with blood pressure 190 something over 120 and a popped blood vessel. So I didn't really drink that much that year. My sister got married in July. I got drunk at her wedding, but I just basically took pills all year and didn't drink. So I can remember that year. Yeah. But I was like 2015, 2014, 2017, 18, I don't know, a little bit here and there. But it was the first time I ever even sat there and tried to think about those years. I knew where I was working and what I was doing, but I don't really remember much other than that.
I missed the Clinton administration, but that's a good thing.
I missed the Obama administration. But I was my number one job was finding pills, period.
Yeah. Period. Yeah. People don't get that. That's our number one job. And I can't even imagine what it's like today.
Oh, I couldn't either. And it's only been a few years for me, but I mean, it was getting difficult at the end. I get people just knowing that I was needing them. Jack, I was paying, sometimes I paid $12 or $15 just for one Norco.
Really?
Most of the time, though, it was around $7 or $8, but I'd get gauged like that big time.
Wow.
But still, when you're doing...
And I was taking 20 to 30 a day.
Right.
Yeah, I was say 20, 30 a day. You got a, half a grand habit a day almost. Sometimes.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I can't imagine.
Somehow we found the money, though, didn't we?
I know. That's the weirdest part. I was doing the math, and I'm like, okay, I didn't steal from anybody except for myself. Borrowed some money from people. And took a really long time to pay back. Some people, I might still owe somebody money. I don't even know. But somehow figured it out.
Yeah. Oh, no. Every single time. I can't even imagine, 23 years of doing that. I mean, it was the amount of money that I spent. I don't even like to talk about it because it's insane. Yeah. Absolutely insane. And of course, everything that comes about because of that, the rest of life goes into the toilet bowl, because of it. But Hey, good thing we don't have to do that today.
Right, exactly. But, and I talked to like my little cousin and my nephew, and I've told them, I'm like, because one's in high school and one's just finished his first year at Fresno State, but I'm like, what you guys really need to understand is that this addiction thing, I said to my nephew, I'm like, this is really prevalent on our side of the family.
Yeah.
And my little cousin, I'm like, it's kind of around on both sides of your family. I said, the scariest part about this freaking disease is that nobody knows that they have this disease until it's too late. You can't find out. So I said, you just want to play Russian roulette because you want to get, have a bunch of beers with your buddies and maybe smoke some weed or, take some pills or whatever you're doing. And now obviously you have to worry about if you're taking pills, if they're legit or not, because you'll just drop dead.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, I don't preach to anybody, let alone them, but I just kind of like having a little trouble just trying to explain to them, get them to understand. But like, because when I was their age, I was doing the exact same stuff that they're doing.
Yeah.
I think the thing that's worked for me, when I've talked to teenagers in classes and stuff, is I approach it like, hey, I'm just sharing my story. I'm not against anything. I'm just letting you know. But also, the only thing I will tell you is if you're out with your friends and you have your second or third beer and you would kill someone for a fourth, or when you're not at that party, you would kill to get some more beer or booze or that pill or smoke that joint or whatever it is, you might want to start talking to someone as soon as possible. Like I've told them, like, hey, I'll welcome you to a meeting later on in life, but I don't want to see you there. Right. Hoping that you can confront whatever it is prior to that, because you can stop it earlier if you want, but you need to recognize these things about yourself.
But then again, that's that whole brain thing. I mean, you've got kids that those brains aren't mature enough yet to even handle that, and so I mean, it's a crapshoot. It's always a crapshoot with these kids. But I wanted to talk about something because we're starting out talking about benzos. First of all, we have never even addressed the benzo issue in the United States. We just haven't addressed it. Mm-hmm. I mean, not even come close to how we've addressed the opioid mess. And I find that strange.
I do too.
I find that really strange. And what I also find strange is that, I don't know about you, Joey, but I'm not hearing a lot about Xanax being laced with fentanyl anymore.
No. I'm
really not. We still hear about the M30 pills. Mm-hmm. We still hear about the other methods on drugs that are being laced. But I'm just not hearing the Xanax thing anymore.
Really?
I'm not.
Yeah.
And we've again, I work with your cousin. I work with Fresno County. I work with all these people, and we're not even talking about that right now because it doesn't seem to be. I don't know. It's still a problem. We know it's still a problem, but nobody seems to address that issue.
Well, and that's such a good point to bring up, because I've been here over a year, and that was one of the main things we were talking about just 14, 15 months ago was, hey, these kids think they're buying a counterfeit Xanax and it's laced with fentanyl and they're gone. But we never, in the midst of that, we also never had conversations. Why are all these kids wanting to buy Xanax? Like you were saying, seeing the parent at home and there it is, or culturally, a friend influencing or whatever it is. It's like we have such a mental health crisis with our youth.
Yeah. And so Chris Herron, I heard him giving a speech once, or it was a podcast or something he was talking, but he said something that was kind of mind-blowing to me. I don't have kids, but if you're a parent, the way my family reacts to things, and most people I know, it's so if you catch your high school age kid with some drugs or alcohol or whatever, what do? You get all pissed off at him and, yell at him and where'd you get it? And Chris Herron said something along the lines of nobody really asked their kids, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Right.
What's going on in your life that you want to alter your state of mind? What are you trying to get away from? Just tell me what's going on. And that really hit home to me for some reason. I'm that just really makes sense. Now, when I was in high school or, early college, if my parents caught me with something and got mad at me and they asked me, or didn't get mad, if they actually approached me that way, I don't know. Maybe I would have told them the truth. I think I'd probably, try to bullshit them or something. But I don't know how I'd react because nobody ever, I've just never really seen anybody approach it that way. And I think that's a great conversation. Again, I'm not a parent, so I don't know shit about parenting, but I think that would be a great approach. maybe kids will open up. I don't know, because I would love to know why when I was 17 or 18, like, why did I really want to like drink a couple beers or smoke some weed or something? Like, why?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a variety of reasons why. I think
it's the same as adults.
Well,
just different circumstances, same reasons.
But same reasons. For whatever reasons, these kids, well, first of all, they need to grow a pair. I'm just going to throw that one out there right now. But that being said, there's a lot of pressure put on these kids from their parents today, on performance. And you have to be that best athlete, and you have to be that best student. You have to be the best in the theater and in the music department. When sometimes these kids are just average, decent people, right? And that's what most of us are. I also think there is peer pressure to a certain extent. And I also think that a lot of these kids, whether other people believe it or not, they're very well in tune to what the drug culture is. And I'm going to go back to saying this. We've done a very, very good job of spreading this awareness piece out there as far as fentanyl and how it's used and what it's used in. And I think some of these kids are probably, they're bright to begin with. So I think they are, I think at least half-assed, not taking some of the fake stuff. I really do believe that. I think they're still getting high. I think they're still experimenting, but I think they know what they're probably taking. Because look, and I question every statistic out there, good, bad, and different. I question them. We've seen 16% decrease in overdoses, over this last year. That doesn't mean that people have stopped using.
Right.
Now, when you say overdose, we mean overdose deaths?
Overdose deaths, right? That's the 16% decrease. That doesn't mean that they've stopped using and that they're still out there doing it. Because I guarantee you they are.
Oh, yeah.
I guarantee you they are.
Yeah, because they either got hip to, if it's a opioid, Narcan of some kind,
sure
or
that's what I was gonna say.
Or
Narcan.
the fentanyl test strips that are readily available. And granted, we'd rather they not die, but still it kind of opens it up that like, oh, great, no fentanyl, so I can snort this, pop this, whatever it is.
Right. That's our big bitch now.
Yeah.
We're sending the wrong message. I mean, again, it's the devil on one shoulder, the angel on the other. You don't want somebody dying, but what kind of message are we sending to your 15-year-old that here's some fentanyl test strips, son, so when you are using cocaine on a Saturday night, let's make sure that there's no fentanyl in it. I mean, really? I mean, give me a break.
Well, at that point, take a look at who your kids are hanging out with. Like, I don't know. I mean, I kind of get up in my kids' business. I just do. I feel I have to because I see some of the same faults and flaws that I have. So like you said, open up for that conversation. Give them enough of a forum to openly talk about if something is there. I'll tell them all the time, hey, no outside solutions to inside problems. And they know what I mean by it because we've had that talk, So it's scary.
Yeah, definitely.
It's still scary out there. Absolutely. But, again, with a lot of these kids, I do believe that there's something going on out there that I really believe there's some kids that are making it right now. In this, they're not using. I'm actually more concerned about the people that are in the current state that they're in their addiction. Because there's nothing out there that is changing that is going to be able to get these people the help that they need. There isn't. One of our big pushes here now is try to get some sort of message across to these legislators that the treatment industry has to be fixed because it's a broken system and I'm talking about the county-run programs, the governmental-run programs. Those systems are so broken that it's almost impossible for somebody to get help if they call one of those organizations.
Right. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call Parents and Addicts in Need at 559-579-1551 or check us out online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media at Pain Nonprofit. Please subscribe to the podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. To donate, please click the link in the description and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.
Yeah, I heard some horror stories about like those kind of programs, and I was just grateful that I actually didn't have to deal with one of those. But it is ridiculous that there's not more help. Like I don't like talking politics because nothing's going to change, I guess, at least in this state. But I mean, you talk about like throwing you-know-what at the wall and hoping it sticks with buying hotels, the governor buying hotels so that you could just put these people together to congregate and do the same thing they're doing on the streets in a hotel. I mean, you're talking billions of dollars in property. Why aren't you taking those billions of dollars and funding the correct kind of programs? Because I can promise you it's a combination, we all know, of mental health and addiction that's on the streets, right? Yeah. But it doesn't matter if they're just a regular old drug addict or if they, have mental issues. Not one of those people at any point in their life said, when I get older, I want to live on the streets and just be high as a kite all day long and talking to the wall. Not one of them wants to be where they are. And I don't care if you go up to them and ask them, they say, leave me alone. No, that's just their state of mind because of where they are. And the fact that we don't offer any help to people like that is crazy. The solution is to give them free place to live.
Or opening up shooting galleries, right? Safe injection sites. I mean, instead of putting money in safe injection sites, why don't you guys put the money into fixing? And by the way, on the same note, why aren't those people coming to us that own private treatment centers and ask us why ours work? And what I mean by that is that they're open, they're functioning, they're at least helping. We're not curing anything, right? Because there is no cure, but we're still standing and in business for a reason here, And again, you have to split this into two categories. You have to split it into the socioeconomic piece. There are people that can afford treatment, they have the right kind of insurance, and there are the people that can't afford it and don't have the right kind of insurance to get it. And we as private treatment, we cannot take, most of us, we're trying to do it with some programs, is to take Medi-Cal because Medi-Cal doesn't pay enough. It doesn't pay enough as a business owner. It doesn't pay enough for us to keep our doors open, And most people out there, they all think that treatment needs to be free. They all think that it needs to be a hell of a lot less money. Well, let me tell you something. Try starting one, and particularly living in the state of California, and let's see if you agree with it then, because it is enormously expensive to start one. It's enormously expensive to maintain one. And that's why these numbers these numbers are high. But we could take funding from the state instead of putting it in these other things and fixing these governmental programs.
Yeah,
my God. But let me tell you something. Some of them are so bad that you almost need to just drive a MiG over them and just blow them to hell and back, right? And start over again.
Why are we using Russian aircraft?
I don't know. Let's blame the Russians. I don't know.
You're right on. And I don't think like the general public, like they don't like seeing people on the streets. They want those people to get help. And when, I heard last night that 15 years ago or something, the budget to like help homelessness in California was $500,000, and like now the most recent one is like $15 billion. You're in this business. I mean, $15 billion, like that's probably would go a long way if that was towards recovery centers to give access to people. Like when I went to rehab, I had gotten let go from my job, and I didn't have any health insurance, and I didn't have any money because I spent it all on pills. And I just was praying to God that my dad would pay for me to go to rehab. But when I was driving there, my cousin called him and told him, I'm taking your son, and they're going to call you because you're going to have to pay for it. I'm beyond lucky that my dad, A, was able to, and B, willing to.
Right.
So you shouldn't have to rely on having a family member. Like, if you're serious about changing your life and getting into recovery in this state, in this whole country, but even in this state, that option should be there, and it should be a viable option.
It should, but here's the other thing. It also has to be long enough. Treatment has to be long enough to where you do have a chance at being successful at it. Mm-hmm. You can't do anything in 15 days, 30 days. Right. I'm sorry, 60 or 90 days. It has to be a minimum of 90 days before we can give somebody even a shot at becoming somewhat successful at recovery.
Yeah. Well, and I think a good transition after, even depending upon person, 90 days, then you're into a sober living type. There's got to be more steps. And we talk about harm reduction all the time. And of course, yes, you don't want a supply of drugs. It's going to kill an abundance of people. But even when we're talking harm reduction, you're not going to get that with a state-run facility.
No.
They're not going to bring you in and go, oh, wow, you're an opioid addict. Well, we better start you on a Suboxone and we're going to wean you off and have it's not going to happen.
Right.
Most likely they're going to get turned out to a freaking methadone clinic. And hey, 4 years later, still doing the same thing.
Still doing the same thing.
Why do I know it? I got a friend that she's still reaching out to me because her son, 4.5 years later, still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
The same damn thing. And I don't know. I always say follow the money.
Right? Why aren't they talking to addicts that have some recovery under their belts?
I couldn't tell you.
Right. That's the $1 million question.
Yeah, it's like because they don't want people to figure out the problem. I mean, because it's never going to get figured out, but to better solutions.
There's better solutions from those of us that have some recovery under our belts, right? And it could actually be helpful in this situation.
Yeah, because I was lucky again. I only went to treatment for 28 days, and I remember one of the first times I heard your podcast, you saying what you just said about, 30 days is not enough. And I agree, 60, 90, whatever. It's for a lot of people. I don't know how I just had that great spiritual awakening and so far it worked. But they were talking about 90 meetings in 90 days when I was still in the treatment center. I'm like, that's a lot.
That's all right.
I was like, what the hell? And so then when I went home, I was like, I don't have a job. What the hell else am I going to do? And I really learned a lot, and I wasn't there very long. I'm like, I'm going to probably do more than 90. I did 205 meetings my first 90 days.
Nice.
Of sobriety. And it didn't matter who the person was that spoke, and at any point, whatever their share was, didn't matter what they looked like, what color their skin was, what their religious, every single person I could relate to at least a small part of what they said.
Something, yeah.
And it was just like reassuring me, like, and I needed it. Like, you're not alone. You're definitely not alone. You're going through the same thing that every single one of these other people are going through.
But you know what one of the other problems is today? And again, I'm just going to spit it out there. All right, it's especially for young people that are going into treatment. The majority of the problem is their parents, because this is normally what happens. Most parents think they know more about this than we do.
Yeah,
and parents will even pull if their kid calls them on the 20th day, let's say they do have 28 days been given to us by the insurance company. On the 20th day, the kid thinks he's got it. He calls home, hey, Mom, Dad, can you come pick me up? I'm doing fantastic, blah, blah, blah. And the parent does it. And the parent comes and picks him up. The parent listens to us while the kid is prior to going in and while the kid's in, but then all of a sudden, now they're back listening to the kid again. That's why it's so important that we push for these parents to come to our family support meetings so they can learn about this. Then all of a sudden, they're all on board, and then they're not.
Yeah.
Then the kid's not going to meetings. They're not getting a sponsor. They're not following up. They're not doing these things. And 2 months later, a month later, they're right back in the same mess again.
Yeah, and I think that's just a lot of education needs to be out there, like just in general for the public, because I haven't really told this story to too many people, but my dad and his wife thought it would be a good idea to test me, like after I was home, not too long, I went by his house. Nobody was home, and like I just whatever I was doing something for him, probably in and out, real quick. Nothing. Didn't think anything of it. My sister tells me, she's like, "Yeah, Dad said he tried to test you. I couldn't believe he did this." I'm like, "What do you mean?" "Well, they left a bottle of Vicodin or something on the counter." I said, "That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard." Pardon my language.
Right. No.
But I mean, I was pissed. I didn't even address it with him though. But like, and I told my sister. I mean, I got pretty upset.
Yeah.
Because I said,
I'd have been upset too.
As you
I'm
should be.
confident in myself right now. I'm like, I've only been home like a week or something, or a month, whatever it was. But I'm like, but what if I decided let me grab that? And I took 2 and they didn't work enough for me. And I ended up taking them all and dropping dead or something.
Right.
You know, like,
right.
Yeah, not the right kind of test.
Yeah. But so like to his defense, he just didn't know. And like, it's like, because I don't know, he probably thinks I'm cured or something.
Right.
And we know there's no
And
cure.
I think that's the big misconception is parents got to get a little fucking patient and understand you got to treat this just like you did your kid's basketball coach. Oh, you didn't know much about basketball, but the coach did, and you see your child improving. Same kind of thing.
Yeah.
You need to get the hell out the way sometimes. You
get
need
out
to
of the
know
way.
when to get out of the way.
Yep.
There's a point where it's like you got to let go. It's like most of these kids, if they're in treatment, they're over 18, they're an adult, you got to start letting go.
Yeah.
You got to
mind you, at the time, I'm 39. So imagine if it's a 20-year-old, like, or a high school kid, the parents are really going to be like,
yeah, because you don't have that fully
Yeah.
developed brain yet, and you're still at this point, like, forever sounds just daunting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're still stuck on that. Wait, I can never drink, I can never smoke a joint, I can never this or that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no. So they're just trying to accept one day at a time.
Right.
They don't even know how to be in the moment yet.
Yeah.
I think it was my second treatment center that that again, I thought I had it made, and it was a local one, and it was at Clovis Hospital. And after 2 weeks, I said, I got this. I said, I just got this. And I called my best buddy. I told him, and he goes, you don't have shit, okay? and I said, yeah, I do. I don't need to talk to you. You're not on my side. Goodbye, right? And I called my wife, and I said, come get me. I got this. And she's going, are you sure? And she came and got me. She wasn't happy about it. But I remember I walked into my house, and I don't know, a few days later, because I used to keep pills in my suit pockets, you know, and sure as shit, man, I went through a coat pocket and there was 50 of them. And it took me about 5 minutes to go, oh, I'm back, you know, because looking at that pill bottle was like looking at a fine bottle of wine. You know, it was that was
Pot
my
gold,
right? That's my love affair right there. And so shit, right then again. Not even 5 days out. You know, and so parents don't get that, you know.
No, they don't. And like, I'm not in that business, so I don't know. I don't know how to. There's just a lot of simple things that need to just be communicated and integrated into society because it is such a big problem.
Yeah.
And it's just an understanding, and it's just taking all the stigmas away and everything. Like, again, like I was saying a minute ago, I did not want to grow up and be addicted to pills for a decade and be an alcoholic. Like, I didn't want to do that, but I made a bunch of shitty choices that continued me down that path. And then I was too scared, embarrassed, and ashamed and all that to ask for help.
Right. Yeah.
I tried to get sober on my own for like 6 or 7 years. Right. Maybe even longer. I was on and off Suboxone the whole time.
Right.
Doctor's like, oh, give me your withdrawal symptoms. Tell them. It's like, you think you need to change the dose? I'm a drug addict, guy. I'm not going to change my dose. If they're going to change it, give me more. I don't know.
Right.
And so it's just, it's crazy.
But it goes back to my point, right? I wish those idiots in Sacramento that I've had to talk with for the last couple of years would listen to this podcast just to hear us three. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because there's more being said here about how recovery should work, but they're not asking anybody.
No.
It's so frustrating.
It leaves me speechless. I can't really. It hits home to us because that's part of our life, but there's no more than 1 degree of separation from anybody. Like, correct. It might not be, if it's not in your immediate household, it's a relative or a close friend who is dealing with somebody.
I tell people, I said, tell me one family in the history of the world that hasn't had one crazy fucking uncle somewhere, okay, that was a drunk. okay, or some relative somewhere. You're right. There's 1 degree of separation. Everybody's got somebody. Everybody knows somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah. And maybe even 2 degrees know somebody that died of fentanyl poisoning or an overdose. One of my best friends, my age, he passed away from liver and kidney failure right before his 41st birthday. I think it was right before his 41st. I was sober for about a year.
Yeah.
He called me and he asked me, he's like, hey man, he's like, when you were fucked up all the time, like, did your eyes ever get really yellow? And I'm like,
oh shit.
Nah, I'm like, they get bloodshot and it wouldn't look good, but like, I was like, I don't know, but like your eyes shouldn't be yellow. You should probably call the doctor.
It's jaundice.
And one of my cousins called me literally like an hour later and he's like, oh, I just saw so-and-so at the gas station. His eyes look like a highlighter. Looks like when so-and-so passed away after she had to get a liver transplant as a younger girl. And I'm like, well, you know him and you have his phone number. You need to call him back and tell him that maybe he needs to go to the doctor. And then like I didn't hear from him for like a week or so. He responded to a text. I don't think anything of it. His brother calls me a couple days later and he's like, yeah, he's in the hospital and it's not good. Oh, man. And this and that. And then, he passed away that week. Like, and it's just like, people think it can't happen to them. This guy's a great guy. He was in the middle of a divorce, but he has 2 beautiful daughters. Right. It can happen to anybody. It's not just opiates. I mean, alcohol ruins just as many lives, if not more. And it's there for everyone to see, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And like you say, the people in Sacramento who run the state, they just don't give a shit.
They don't give a shit. No. They really don't. And what's even more amazing to me is, again, I've been doing this a long time. You can tell your story. I can tell my story. I mean, to these parents, it's like, do you not believe me?
Yeah, right.
Do you not believe us that this is where this took our life? That we come from normal families, we come from normal backgrounds. You don't believe me that I've actually had that many surgeries, and most of them because of my addiction? I mean,
yeah. Why would I be making it up?
Why? First of all, why would we be making this up? Why would we?
We don't need to sensationalize.
I don't need to right?
Stuff we've done.
I'm sitting here sweating right now. I'm not even uncomfortable. It's just like a weird topic,
I just don't get it.
I don't either. And that's one of the things. Like for me, when I went, and I don't like making it about me, but when I went to rehab,
make it about you.
When I had to introduce myself that day that I got there, I said, I don't know anything about anything. I said, all I know is this disease that I have. It doesn't care what color your skin is, how much money you have or don't have, or where you come from. What country, doesn't matter. So I'm just here for help because I don't know what the hell to do.
Right.
Yeah. It wants you dead. That's it, plain and simple.
Yeah.
It wants you dead. And you can't beat it.
Yeah. And I was like the younger kid who was like, I'm not going to do drugs and I'm not going to end up in rehab like my cousin did. And like where I was. I drove and visited him there. The first month I had my license, I visited my cousin at the same rehab center I ended up going to 20-something years later.
Right. Yep. And there it is.
I was like, that was a goal. Don't become a drug addict or alcoholic. Whoa, guess what happened? I became a drug addict and alcoholic.
I think it's valuable to ask you about, your time in treatment. And you and I had talked about this personally, but like, our programming, you actually went through some stuff of rechanging the way you think, which is imperative to our sobriety. We got to think differently, especially with alcohol. We were talking about, you see the sign, the gal with the big chest and the guy next to her, and they look happy or whatever it is. It's the mommy wife club. I don't care what it is. Or hey, this is what we do in high school on the weekends. Yeah. All this BS that is just it's crap. It's fodder. So what was some of that process? I'm really interested.
Well, a lot of it was just like, the 12 steps and that whole program. But then when it came to like the programming, for me, it was more like acceptance. Need to accept I can't go crazy about things that I can't control and have nothing to do with, and the way that we react to things. So it's just like this, the verbiage and the concept that they were talking about. It was like, for me, the way I interpret it was like kind of internal, and it's like really hard for me to explain it. But I mean, to put it real easy, is like everything that I thought I knew up to that point in my life that I thought I knew how to do was obviously wrong. Right? Because look where I am, my whole situation and everything. So, I mean, I told myself, forget it. Everything that you thought, you were definitely wrong. So whatever these people in here and after, whether it's your sponsor and through the like whatever they tell you, it's working for a collective group of people. Right. So listen to them.
Yeah.
Right.
And so again, like I remember after you and I had talked about that, I'm like, I could have explained it better, but I really can't. I can't articulate what I meant by like, I mean, they call it programming for a reason, but for me, it was so easy just to accept for that very reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was just a dipshit.
Right.
Well, through life and just,
it's that challenge too with like when people ask maybe about the spiritual awakening, you can kind of tell them yours, but if they're looking to feel what you felt, it's never going to happen. They got to feel what they feel.
Yep.
And it's got to be their own experience.
Yeah. And when I was, I don't know, probably within the first couple months out of treatment, I was talking to my cousin, the one that drove me there, who's been in recovery for a really long time. I said, I feel really weird about this. And he's like, why? Because, I mean, I would go see him like almost every day before COVID. And then during COVID, I was hanging out with him every day. But I said, I just feel kind of weird because, there's already people from the meetings that I go to every day that relapse and disappear and this and that. I said, what the hell makes me so special? Mm-hmm. Like, I said, I know I don't have this figured out or beat, but I'm like, for right now, for these first 45 days or whatever it was, I'm like, the thought of drinking or taking any kind of drugs is just so far gone. And like, I'm in on this. Right. He's like, you're one of the lucky ones. He's like, you still think that spiritual awakening is bullshit? I said, I never thought it was bullshit. He's like, you know what I mean? He's like, you had it, you have it. And I was just like, wow. I said, I hadn't really thought about it, but I realized it happened like that first day of treatment when I went to bed with the fact that my whole family knew that I was there and what I'd been going through. It was like the weight of the whole universe was off my shoulders. Right. And my head hit the pillow and I went to sleep for the first time like since I was like 8 years old.
Isn't that a great feeling?
Yeah. And I was like, I'm not dead. And it can only get better. So I'm like, so yeah, that spiritual awakening is real.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to explain it, but I wish everybody could experience it.
Well, I think another thing too that you spoke of, how many meetings did you do in 90 days? 205?
205, yeah.
That it has to become your occupation. Why? Because our addiction was our occupation. Right. You guys seeking your pills. Me, it was, okay, I don't know that I want to go home. I wonder who's at this bar right now because they tend to already be drinking enough. So if I show up, they'll be happy to see me and they'll buy the first couple rounds. Mm-hmm. And then I'll go to this bar afterwards and I don't have to walk because it's too, I mean, I had it that well plotted out. It was my freaking occupation.
Absolutely.
So it has to be your occupation.
Right.
And as far as with families, they have to support and understand that.
Yeah, and I know my situation was unique. Like I said, I didn't have a job when I came back home, and I don't have kids. I wasn't married, but those meetings, they're early in the morning, they're at lunchtime, they're at night. Like it was, I know it was easier for me because I didn't have all those other commitments. But yeah, I had to get back to work eventually, pretty quick. But you should be able to still, if you're married.
Well, you can do both because when I showed up. When my wife picked me up from the airport, by the way, in a borrowed Jeep Wrangler with no top on it because I had 2 cars repossessed while I was in treatment, not a happy woman. She said, not only are you going back to work because you have a family to support, because I'm still fortunate, I still had my business. She said, you will be in those meetings. And I did both. Yeah. I mean, and if you're serious about your recovery, you're going to do it. But you also have to go in there and you got to listen. You got to shut your mouth and you got to open up your ears and you've got to listen to what everybody says in there. And not everything that somebody says is going to make sense to you. But like you said earlier, if that's one little piece that one person said, and almost everybody that talks in those, when you're new, if you're listening, you're going to relate to something that somebody in there says.
Yeah. And that's the most important part because for me, I don't know how one other human being thinks. But for me, when I was in school, from high school through college and whatever, yeah, you got to go to class because you have to go to class. How much are you really paying attention? How much are you really trying to soak in? Well, for me, I mean, I got pretty decent grades, but I was like, whatever. I'm just here to pass the time and try to catch a little something. The meetings, you can't treat like that.
Right, you can't.
Exactly what you just said. You have to go and pay attention. And every single time, I went to 205 meetings in 90 days. You think I really wanted to just go walk in on every one of them? Like, no, half the time I didn't even feel like being there.
Right.
And that's another cliche that's not a cliche because it's true, is that every single one of them that I don't feel like going, that was like the best meeting of the
Right.
week.
You felt better coming out.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every time. And how do you explain that to somebody?
You can't.
You
It's
know?
something you have to experience.
Yeah,
Like,
be a part of it though. You got to get in there and jump in that community and that collective. It's interesting because you become a part of a collective in a way to become an individual. Because you start to build an actual identity. It's not a rebuild. You're building something totally new here. Yeah. This is a whole new direction of life. I mean, fitness, getting into that. Flindt, you go ask little kid Flindt, and he's not doing this nonprofit, and a treatment facility. And I certainly didn't expect to be in this position either. I thought I was going to be the next Howard Stern. We'll see how that worked out, huh?
You're there.
Yeah. Howard Stern of recovery.
But I also think it's important that when you're new, and again, you guys are absolutely right. Your focal point has to be on your recovery and attending those meetings. But I also think it's extremely important to find that one thing that you really enjoy doing. And again, you said it. I mean, a lot of us had to have families coming out of treatment, so you got to go back to work. But you still need to make time to find that one thing that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And again, mine was golf. Yours is fitness. Yours is doing this stuff.
Legos.
Right? I don't care. I don't give a shit what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. I really don't care. But you have to find time for that one enjoyable thing that you got. Because life's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And the only thing I was really scared about, I was like, every single hobby, everything that I did,
But you couldn't
I
do
was
it.
drunk
Right.
and or high or
Right.
one or the other, like for 20 years.
Right.
I'm like, God, it's not going to be fun. It's going
Right.
to suck. But then I was like, all right, well, you just go try it. Go into that situation. If it sucks or you're uncomfortable, just leave. Every single activity, every single thing, golf, all of it was so much more fun.
Absolutely it is.
It was like doing it for the first time in my life. Like, this is actually way more fun than I thought it was.
Absolutely.
And like, so I've heard other people talk in meetings that like they're scared of of those kinds of situations, and it's like that's exactly how I felt, and I just went and tried it, and it was just so much better.
Yeah.
I told him I didn't know how to hit a golf ball sober because I learned how to play when I was high. Right?
Yeah.
It is the best. It's the best thing in the
You
world.
hear certain people like Eric Clapton, like he had to relearn to play when he got sober. So many of these people that have these skill sets, they
all say they play better, they sing better, they perform better.
Yeah.
Not high.
Yeah, when I was in treatment, like the second week, during rec time, you could play ping pong, shoot baskets. I really thought I damaged myself because I could spit out sports stats and movie lines like crazy, and I could shoot basketball really well. I'm a pretty decent ping pong player. I'm just sitting there bullshitting with people, and I'm thinking, I want to cite this or that or what. I couldn't think of anything. I go out to shoot the basket for the first time. The hoop's right here. The ball ended up over there. I have awards from shooting baskets when I was a kid.
Right.
I couldn't hit the rim. Then the ping pong, I missed the ball. I'm like, what the hell? Hopefully, and then luckily, within a few days,
It comes back.
But it was just it was scary and crazy.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, man, did I really fuck myself up? These are things that I used to be really good at 2 weeks ago, and now I can't remember how to do any of this.
Well, they'll come
we're
back.
rewiring ourselves.
Yeah.
We're rewiring ourselves. But I want to add one last thing on why I think the group meetings are imperative, especially when you're a newcomer. You got to get in the middle of it so that you don't get picked off. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If you're sitting on the outskirts of it and you're kind of half-assing it, you're going to easily be picked off.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. So you got to, and especially if people maybe they go through some traumas that's related to trust or they've been violated, be it sexually, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it is, it's a tough process, but it's a good, safe place to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I didn't have, I think I might have told you this, but I didn't have any crazy trauma in my life that really triggered all this. Yeah, my dad was a crazy Italian guy screaming and yelling and whatever, but nothing crazy. But the first month or so that I was back from treatment, there were a couple instances. I was on the phone with my sister once that she just said something that like rubbed me the wrong way, pissed me off. She wasn't even being mean or anything. It was just whatever it was, it pissed me off. But what my first thought was, I'm going to go get fucked up right now and I'm going to show her. And I immediately, after I had that thought, I caught myself.
Right.
I'm like, that's not going to do anything to her. It's going to screw you up.
Right.
And it happened one other time, like right after the conversation with my dad, but it was within that first month. So the reason I said that is because if you've been through some like actual traumatic things, man, and something like that reminds you of that, like I could see it. So if you're not involved and engaged, like, well then heck yeah, why would you not go, back to doing something like that?
Right.
Well, and I think that's where it's important to start to, why 12 steps works for me, and I recommend it for everybody, because I started to understand my isms. My pride, my lust, my envy, and those kind of things. And we had a great episode on here with our friend Greg Champion where he talked about him and his wife were going through a hard time. And she moved out, and so it was, oh, I see how it is. Okay, well, I've got this hot young lady working for me. She's going to become the new wife, placing it. I'm going to go get a full sleeve of tattoos because, I want to be a larger draw of attraction to women. Stupidly not understanding. There's no fucking way you can get full sleeves in a single day and sitting and everything else. And then he was going to hire the most expensive divorce lawyer that he knew. And he understood, he came to a realization over a couple of weeks, these are my isms, and he hit a frickin' meeting.
Yeah.
Because he understood that. And it's those things we have. Times we're still going to have the addict thought. We just can't have the addict action.
Yeah. You can still have the addict thought after 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Of sobriety. Absolutely. I get it from time to time. I got to sit there and I got to go to my spot, right? And I just got to sit there and go, okay. But you'll still get them. It's like anything else. It's how you deal with it.
Right. Yeah, and
that's simply how you deal with it.
That's why it is written: spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection.
Right.
Boom.
Bam. There it is.
Anything else, Joey?
No, I just appreciate you guys letting me come in and chat with you.
Absolutely.
It's great. I'd love to be involved and help in some way, somehow, because like we were talking about, there's money being thrown around at the wrong. I don't have the solutions or the answers to any problems, not even my own. But I think I have some good ideas.
Great.
And I don't think that any of it's being handled right now. And just need people to start listening to more people like us about our stories and how it affects the people that are next door to them and in their families. And it doesn't have to. We don't all have to go through hell.
No.
Yep.
So. No. And it's time for those changes, because if it's not made soon here, I mean, look, in my opinion, we've already lost a generation of people. It's not getting any better. No matter, I don't care. I mean, I care, but that overdose death rates have come down. That's still not the solution.
Yeah, the goal is not to just prevent overdose deaths. The goal should be to prevent people from using, abusing, and becoming addicted to most of these substances.
And I don't think that's what the policymakers don't get, is they think, oh, just because you're not dying, that you're living a life.
Right.
No, you're just a freaking... You're
a shell.
Yeah. You're on autopilot. You are subconsciously living 24/7.
That's it.
Feral with one goal: get your fix.
Yep.
That's it.
Right. So I mean, let's chat, because seriously, I'd love to look. We love bringing people in to help us and with ideas. Man, we're all for it, because nobody has the total answers to this thing, and that's why I've always said it has to be a collective effort. From people that are in recovery, from people that aren't in recovery. Absolutely. Bring the ideas, bring them in. Let's see if we can make some change. And again, I'll say it for the 150th time. I'm not going to see a lot of this in my lifetime, but you guys can. And you guys are the ones that are going to have to continue it and keep going with it and keep fighting, because again, it's just what it is. I am not going to be around forever, and it's got to continue.
Yep.
Because if not, we're going to lose, again, yet another generation and another generation. And I don't know how long we can actually go on this way.
Yeah.
I really don't.
I don't either.
So. But thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thank
appreciate you. Thanks, man.
And thank you guys, of course, for either watching on YouTube or listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If this is the first time, hit that subscribe button. Share with a friend, somebody that might get some value out of it. And, of course, if you want more information on us, painnonprofit.org.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call Parents and Addicts in Need at 559-579-1551 or check us out online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media at Pain Nonprofit. Please subscribe to the podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. To donate, please click the link in the description and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.